And welcome to the first episode of JBoss's Soapbox. Basically, the main idea of this video series is for me to give my views on the world, whatever it may be. But first, a couple of disclaimers. First, I did prepare these speeches, and yes, I am reading off of the Word document, but that's because I tend to think a lot about these subjects, and I often have a lot to say, so I don't want to forget anything. Or conversely, ramble on aimlessly, which I have a major tendency to do. Excuse me. Second, when I spew out facts and numbers and such, they are cited as annotations. Third, this topic is unnaturally long even for what I plan to talk about in the future. That's because there's a lot for me to say. So for this episode, the primary topic is guns. I'm going to get this out of the way quick. I will be talking about the Aurora, Colorado shooting, but I will save it for the final part. The link is below in the annotation. If you want to see my views specifically on assault weapons and the like, the link is also listed below for later on. Now, I'm going to admit I do not own any firearms yet. I'm only 19 as of this recording. Mom will let guns in the house because her friend's brother died in a hunting accident when they were teens, so I'll be the good boy and respect her past and not buy any guns till I have my own apartment. And I've only gone to a shooting range a grand total of 4 times. But to compensate for my lack of actual first-hand experience, I read up a lot about guns, and I have thought about my opinions and ideologies incredibly seriously. In general, my ideas will be more towards favoring lesser gun restrictions, but before anyone starts thinking I'm one of those stupid, racist, gun-toting hyper-conservatives, I'm not. I'm more liberal in my beliefs, except I like guns, though I personally see myself as a moderate Democrat because I'm more than willing to compromise to get an optimal solution, and I'll do as best as I can without a person with an opposite opinion in the room with me. And no, I'm not a hyper-leftist either. I'm a moderate Democrat because I'm more than willing to listen to the other side of the aisle. But that whole partisanship topic is for a completely different episode, which I'll do sometime in the future. So the topic of guns will be divided into 3 subtopics primarily: where to carry, restrictions of firearms and accessories, and miscellaneous in that order. First topic, where to carry. So let's say you're running a business that sells rubber duckies. Bear with me, this is relevant. What the business boils down to is weighing the profits per rubber ducky versus the size of the customer base. You simply can't favor one over the other. If you favor maximum profit per rubber ducky by pricing the rubber ducky at $20, you do get the benefit of having an 8,000% profit margin because the rubber ducky only took 25 cents to make. But few people will want to buy your rubber ducky because it's far too expensive. So only 3 people per week will be willing to purchase the rubber ducky. $59.25 a week is nowhere near enough to run the company. That you therefore cannot pay back the overhead and can't pay the employees, so you run out of business. Well, what if you go the other way? If you sell the rubber ducky at 50 cents, 20,000 people per week will buy the rubber duckies. That solves the problem of getting more people. But what do you know? You make $5,000 a week, which although is more, is still not enough to keep your business afloat. However, what if you price the rubber ducky at $3 a pop? You'll get 18,000 people per week. It's not as much as 20,000 people per week, but with the total weekly profit of $49,500, it is more than enough to cover all of your business expenses, and your company can even expand and put in a new store or 2 in a couple of years. The same process has to be applied to laws, like with gun control in this case. There has to be an optimization of the multiple ideals where there can be the least amount of restrictions on gun types as possible, while simultaneously allowing the maximum safety possible to the general public. The problem is, in states like New York, California, Massachusetts, and Illinois, I'm a native of New York right now, they're ignoring the idea of optimization or are misguided in thinking that the optimization is far too much on the side of favoring gun control and are going way over the deep end. And they think it's for the safety of the citizens, but it's just going too far in the freedoms, which I'll be on the specifics on that in a minute. Or we could go on the other end and be too loose in gun usage like in the Trayvon Martin shooting case. Because the stand your ground laws in Florida, in my opinion, need to be restricted somewhat and be a bit more similar to New York's self-defense laws. Which I actually like New York's self-defense laws, which is not the amount of restrictions on what guns I own. Where the shooter, in order not to be charged, needs to either not be an aggressor, or if he were the aggressor, had communicated clearly that he has changed his mind and surrendered while the defender keeps on attacking him regardless. Now, for the politicians in the restrictive states as I call them, that truly believe that these laws are put in place and should remain in order to protect the people, I sincerely applaud you guys because you're trying to do the right thing. Trying. However, I just don't believe that it's the right way to go about it. I know what I'm about to say may sound like I'm favoring more gun rights because, well, you know, I am. But if anyone here that's watching this video has taken calculus, you'll know that in an optimization problem, the proportions of one value versus another, or multiple, but we're just dealing with two values right now, aren't always even in an optimization problem. They can, actually, they often do, in fact, tend to be very lopsided, and I feel that this lopsided collection of values, favoring more gun rights, produces the optimization where the maximum number of people will be happy with, or will eventually be happy with once they see the results, in terms of maximizing safety and maximizing gun rights. Crazy shooters tend to go into areas where they know there will be no one with guns, like Virginia Tech, which had a no-gun policy prior to and after the shooting. They know no one will stop. They know no one will stop them for many minutes until cops arrive, so they can kill a lot of people in that time, regardless of what weapons they were carrying. Under most of those situations, the killers could have been stopped short of their complete shooting spree had there been a concealed carry or two or three or whatever in the area. Reason being, had there been a few concealed carry holders on campus in the areas where the shooting occurred, the good guys, as I call them at the minute, would have taken the shooter out within a few seconds, ideally, so the rampage could have been minimized to only a couple of people. My idea for optimization on where you can carry, my first topic, would be this. No state rules and restrictions where one can concealed carry, but individual buildings or campuses, like businesses, schools, etc., not entire cities or counties, can decide what they will or will not permit, and those that do not permit should have appropriate security to compensate. Places that sell alcohol can permit people to conceal carry, but anyone within that business's physical property will be subject to fines or possible incarceration if any measurable amount of alcohol is in their system as they brandish or use their weapon, where they will be immediately breathalyzed afterwards. However, no open carry will be permitted at all. The knee-jerk response for the leftist would be probably that I'm going to be way too lenient, and frankly, I can't blame them, because my ideas seem to be counterintuitive in many situations. But in this universe, there are many truths and realities that are simply that, counterintuitive. For example, if we go back in time, like 700 to 1,000 years, and I was debating whether or not the Earth was flat or round, it would appear perfectly logical that the Earth was flat. No one circumnavigated the globe at that time, at least no one of important standing, so we would never really know for sure. Because if the Earth was round, why aren't people in Hamburg standing up like this, and why aren't people in Bangalore standing like this? So, how could everyone be standing straight up when the Earth is round? Well, it wasn't until hundreds of years later that someone finally found out that the Earth is round, and everyone is standing straight up because down is of a different definition, where down means when talking on the surface of a planet, is defined as pointing towards the center of the massive object, regardless of one's absolute or relative position on the body. My ideas with guns are similar in the manner that the proper solution may seem counterintuitive, but I have seemingly very valid reasons for proposing each idea. The reason I want no state restrictions is to maximize the role of the concealed carrier. Their role in society is to supplement police forces on a voluntary basis. The police can't be everywhere. Everyone knows that, including criminals, and that's one of the ways they scout out where to commit crimes. The concealed carrier needs to be the person who is willing to step in when the police cannot. Take New York City, for example. Though I don't live in the city, one of my friends I met in college last year lives in one of the poorer areas of Brooklyn, and I got all this information from her. As a lot of us know, if you live in a city, it is next to impossible to legally own a gun, at least in New York City. However, a lot of otherwise law-abiding citizens purchase them illegally anyway. But why would you call them law-abiding, if you ask me, if they are illegally purchasing guns? It's because they have little of a choice. Criminals like to commit crimes in New York City because they know that with the gun laws in place, virtually no one will be able to stop them, assuming cops aren't in the area at the time. Even if they aren't planning on shooting their victims, all they need to do is brandish their weapon, knowing that they have the power to get away with their crime because their victim is defenseless. So it's sadly common that some 18-year-old kid who comes up behind your back with a gun illegally purchased through some sort of drug trade or whatever and demands to take your money, he generally gets the wallet and just simply walks away. The people that decide to illegally purchase firearms... well, I lost my place. For legitimate purposes know this fact, and have decided that the safety of their shop, their customers, or their own personal property, or their loved ones, or friends, or whatever in the immediate area are more important than any gun laws that they might be caught for and punished for. Though not every person in New York City carries a gun, it still works in at least reducing crime rates. Most criminals prey on those that are weak because they know that they will get away with their crime without harm to themselves. However, although there are few people in New York City that can legally own guns, and the criminals are aware of this, there are still enough people carrying guns illegally for them to be cautious. And they know that because the criminals tend to get their guns illegally as well, because it's cheaper and the required background checks, etc., will not permit the criminal to have a gun excuse me, because of their record. So although they know that there aren't many legal carriers, they're nevertheless forced to play Russian roulette with their lives, because they never quite know if the person they're going to mug or rape might just have a gun in their purse or in their waistband or under their jacket and not in a holster on the outside of their body. They have to gamble, and they have to be careful in judging who their victim is. And remember, criminals don't give a crap about what the gun laws are because they break the laws, hence the term criminal. Now, the reason why I believe that individual places should be given the decision to disallow civilians to carry... I believe the individual places should be given decisions to disallow civilians to carry is because that there are people that will always be afraid of civilians carrying guns, and if they, like the owners of the business or whatever, feel that the police would be more responsible of a choice to protect themselves or a rightful security guard or whatever, then so be it. But I believe they need to follow through on keeping their customers and whatnot safe by having at least a cop or two or a reputable rent-a-cop or whatever that can respond either instantly or very quickly to any nasty situations that might arise. The reason of the alcohol rule, I believe, is because, like with cars or heavy machinery, because of the impaired judgment, reflexes, and coordination as side effects of alcohol, you can become very dangerous. I shouldn't need to explain this myself further. Like with cars or whatever, they're going to be really dangerous if you are drunk with them. However, if you are in a bar and you're sober, it should be legal because you're essentially the designated driver or shooter in this place. So you would be completely lucid and capable to, use the gun and decide when you should use the gun or not. And the reason that I believe open carry should not be permitted at all, now this is where I'm trying to be more moderate, is because the role of the concealed carrier is to protect the general... Whoops. I'll restart that. Okay, that was my 14-minute timer, so I'm going to restart on that in the next part, so I'll pick up on that in a second.